What's up, everybody? Another blessed day out here in God's creation. We're on the T8 Outdoors podcast. Thank you guys for chiming in. If you could do me a big favor, if you're on YouTube, if you could hit the like and the subscribe button, it'd do a massive favor. And I definitely want to get today's podcast out. So by doing that, it puts this podcast into the algorithm, and then more people with disabilities are going to be able to see this podcast and podcasts in the future and ones in the past. So if you guys could do that, I'd be really appreciative. But on the other line today, I have someone I really look up to, Sam Schmidt. He's a great man, great philanthropist, and what he's done for the spinal cord community. And I'm just going to give a small little intro on Sam. So Sam is a former IndyCar driver, championship team owner, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. A Pepperdine University graduate, he built successful businesses before launching a professional racing career. He earned his first IndyCar victory in 1999 after competing in 3 Indianapolis 500s. In 2000, a testing crash left him as a quadriplegic. Determined to keep racing, he founded Sam Schmidt Motorsports, which became one of the most successful teams in Indy Light history. Later, fielding an IndyCar team, he sold to McLaren in 2024 to focus on his foundation. The foundation he founded was called Driven, which is formerly Conquer Paralysis Now, which funds research and operates rehabilitation centers providing physical and emotional support regardless of insurance. Sam, thank you for coming on today.
I'm Derek. Thanks for covering us.
So I really want to dive into, like, we kind of touched on it a little before we started the podcast, but can you tell us how you got into racing? Like, how did that bug bite you in the very beginning?
I think like many kids, we're kind of drawn, biasedly to where our parents do. And, I didn't grow up around football, basketball, baseball, or hunting or fishing, like many of my friends in the Midwest. My dad took up racing at a very young age. He was a farm boy, loved to drag race, loved to race super modifieds around Nebraska. And when I was very young, he got an opportunity to move to California to build race cars for this iconic guy named Don Brown back in the 60s and 70s. And so he thought that was going to be a 3-month stint, but farm boy, typical story, farm boy from Nebraska, goes to California, doesn't go back to Nebraska. So he got swallowed up in the racing life of Southern California. Eventually, after a couple of years, migrated towards off-road racing, which at the time was pretty raw. Vegas to Reno, Barstow, Mexico. And then just because of that, when I was 5, he put me on a motorcycle, 50cc Honda. And, away we went. We worked on the motorcycles and the off-road vehicles pretty much every night after school with his buddies and stuff. And either I was racing or he was racing. And so incredibly connective family sport, everybody gets involved, everybody's all in. And we did that for a number of years. And then unfortunately, my dad had an accident in Mexico, a little different than mine, where his brain slapped up against his skull, formed a blood clot on his left side, paralyzed his right side, lost his speech. And this was 1974, so things were even more archaic than they are now. They told him he'd never walk or talk again. And, obviously the best way to get a farm boy to do anything is tell him he can't do it. So 2 years outpatient therapy in Northridge, 5 days a week, 2 hours a day. He got the use of his leg and his speech back, never got his arm back, but it is kind of the cruel irony that, we were both paralyzed racing. And so that put the brakes on my racing career. At that time, I was 11, played football, basketball, baseball throughout high school, but was always getting kind of drawn back to it, whether it was at a dirt track in Torrance called Ascot in Gardena, actually. And I would work on people's cars and friends that raced down there. And then my uncle got drawn into sports car racing called SCCA out at a local track called Willow Springs. And I started hanging around him, and then just sucked me in like a magnet. And I started racing a lot again in 1992, but that time was road racing on asphalt. Sports Car Club of America said, hey, I'm just going to dive in and see if I can do it. If I'm any good at it, I'll keep doing it. If I'm not, I'll put on the coat and tie and do the corporate thing. And luckily or unluckily, I don't know which, got very successful very fast. Won the region that year, won the national championship the next year, and kind of the rest is history. From a very young age, my idol was a guy named Rick Mears from Rick Mears from Bakersfield, California. He grew up in the desert too, but started road racing. I got picked up at Roger Penske and won 4 Indy 500. So from kind of teenage age on, my North Star was the Indy 500. I wanted to race there, more than I could imagine, and so I just kept working towards that, and we were obviously good enough on the track to get it done. So we raced there 97, 98, 99, dream come true. And then it all paid off ultimately here in Las Vegas, where I live now. We sat on the pole September 1999, won the race. It's like the perfect storm. I've been married 7 years. I had a 6-month-old and 2.5-year-old. I just reached my life dream. But as often happens when you're at a pretty high point and doing well, you get knocked down and told, who really makes the decisions in your life, so to speak. And 4 months after my victory, I was testing down in Orlando, hit the wall in a really awkward way at 180 miles an hour, and blew apart my C3, C4 vertebrae, just about kind of an up fluke, so to speak, but perfect storm. And I don't even have a C4 vertebrae, but I was very fortunate. The IndyCar series had their entire medical staff there, the helicopter, everything. So they resuscitated me, put in the helicopter, go to the trauma center in Orlando, get a fusion that night. And, kind of the rest is history. I mean, you can relate. A lot of your, watchers can relate. I mean, it turns your family upside down pretty much. And now we've been dealing with it, for 26 years.
Yeah, that's, it's definitely not a injury that is a solo injury. Your entire world is affected. And a lot of people don't realize the magnitude of what not necessarily what it's like, but like what it takes to sustain a solid quality of life. And but I'm extremely proud of how you didn't give up, and you didn't throw in the towel. As I've ran into several people through my injury. I've been injured 16 years now, and I'll speak for myself. For first couple of years after my injury, I went dark path, dark area. Didn't want to. I disassociated from life, but now that I worked my way out of that, and built a career, built a job, got all that, and now I'm pushing it forward and helping people push forward. But it sounds like we all go through our initial phases, but you got on the schneid right away and decided to turn to help people out with Driven.
Yeah, I think good or bad, I had first and foremost my father's example of rebounding from his injury 25 years earlier. And so that helped, or, really, I didn't feel like I had an excuse not to at least give it a try. That backed up by 6-month-old, 2.5-year-old wanting to do everything possible to try and see them grow up, even though the prognosis wasn't very great. I was on a ventilator. In fact, the neurosurgeon who, to this day, I wish I could kind of go back and give him the middle finger, but he told my wife, she took a red eye back, and got there 6 a.m., 6-month-old in her hand. And all I could say was, well, he luckily survived the night, and if he survives the week, he'll be on a ventilator the rest of his life, which we really wouldn't expect that to be very well. So just find him a nursing home, and that was his bedside manner, So fortunately, again, my dad, there wasn't a ton of internet as 2000, so it was all in its infancy. So he literally started calling on the payphone and down the hall, Craig and Kessler and Shepherd and all these major rehabilitation hospitals. All of them to a T said, it's not a ventilator. We're just going to have to teach you guys how to deal with it. But there was one doctor, one rehab site at the time, Barnes Jewish Hospital in St. Louis, with a Dr. John McDonald, who ironically had been working with Christopher Reeve for a few years on this whole kind of concept of heavy duty activity-based training and or just hard workouts. And all I said was, man, we're gonna bust his butt and try and get him off the ventilator. And if we can't, then we'll deal with it. And that's, of course, what everybody wanted to hear. So maybe 3 or 4 weeks after my accident, I took a very bumpy, not great medical ride to St. Louis from Florida. And 2 weeks later, they had me off the ventilator, which was nothing anybody considered that possible, right? So that gave us a really good boost. I also readily admit, which really is why we started the foundation, that I had professional athlete insurance. They wanted to start kicking me out of rehab in about 4 months. I argued my way to 6 months. But when I got home, my house was converted. I had a van sitting there and all the tools to go back to work and decide what I want to do. That is not the norm, as we all know. So we started the foundation as a way to leverage the motorsports fan base and everybody that wanted to help us, to help others. Still really naive at the time as to what that all meant. But you realize that as well as anybody that when this happens and it turns your life upside down, you really got to make a choice, You can sit on the couch and be in your misery, so to speak. And, sometimes that lasts forever and it doesn't last very long. Or, you have somebody encourage you or you figure a way out of it. For me, I think it might have been the professional athlete side of things. It might have been my dad. It might have been our faith, our family, everything. It's like I knew that I had to figure out what I was doing next. We did the intensive rehabilitation for quite a while, got stronger, but still, never got the use of my biceps or triceps back, which was pretty frustrating. But then I think I realized that that's what enabled me to talk to people who did have their arms or other limbs to use. And I could say, hey, I started my race team. I still live in the dream, still have the passion. More recently, drove a McLaren 200 miles an hour. So if I can do these things and you have the use of your arms, I really don't have a lot of patience for your excuses, And so, that's what driven's all about, I'm not gonna like put you down if you make a conscious decision to not get on with life or not determine your goals or your purpose, because I do get that. I've seen a lot, people that just can't get the strength that it takes to move on. So it's kind of like, but I also want people to be realistic. You are gonna, and try to get to them as soon in the process as possible, because now you're looking to get 4 weeks of rehabilitation, and you need to maximize that. You need to advocate for more. You need to beat your chest. Like, I paid really crazy premiums my entire life for insurance. So by God, you're going to give me what I need now. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. And the insurance companies are going to deny as quick as they can. So we advocate for that. We try to inform people of their rights, of their abilities to, try and get what they need. And then to me, it's all about, okay, this sucks. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's going to be harder to get up. It's going to be longer to get up. Everything takes more time. There's no spontaneity. You got to plan things out, trips and whatnot. But it is a life, and you can make something of it if you want to. And if you decide you want to, that's where we'll jump in and help you physically, mentally, with connected technology. You can't go back to work. I now have many stories which I need to put in the next book or the next set of videos where people that didn't have a pot to piss in really have used their disability to do some fantastic things afterwards, right? Because they had the time, they had people willing to help them, and all of a sudden, maybe now I can be a Paralympic athlete. Maybe now I can be, uh, you know, uh, a stockbroker when I never had time before. So there's a lot of success stories that I now have over 26 years of meeting people, and a lot of people are extremely happy. After the fact, it just takes a lot more work and a lot more planning. So I'm blessed. Now my kids are 26 and 28. I've got two grandkids under 3, and I'm really glad that we all put together the effort to get us this far. I think is the bottom line, and now we're just trying to help as many people at least have access, if they want to put the work on, at least have access to the tools after a tragedy.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that 100%. And I'm constantly preaching that on this podcast. And because I talk from my personal experience, but it's to get off that couch. And it's really, it's a mindset, but it's putting one, so to say, one foot in front of the other. And it's not going to happen overnight. But if you get the ball rolling and you get those dominoes falling, 1 foot turns into 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, and next thing you know, you're back on the schneid. You're back on the roll. And yeah, life is going to be different. It's going to be harder, but it forges in you a character. Your mindset, your character. You're going to be so much stronger, and your ability to impact people. And I always picture the small kid who's a recent T8 paraplegic, and what I could preach to this child and how to get this kid through that. And that's what helps me the most, just to keep on keeping on, is there's always somebody looking up to you. And even if it's just an able bodied person, they don't even have to have a disability, but they realize, like, look how hard, Sam, Derek, whoever, look how hard they have it, and continuing to go, like, what's my excuse? And
Well, even able-bodied people too, right? I'm sure you get this, but there's not a week that goes by that somebody doesn't text me and say, "Oh man, I thought I was having a bad day, and then I thought about your situation, and like life's great," And able-bodied people need a good kick in the head, sometimes too. So to your point too, and say the hunting community, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've sent people to different vendors and different websites and different professionals to convert a side by side or to convert a ATV for accessibility and hand controls. And I say, because that's the common thing, right? In the first month, it's like, oh my God, like I can't hunt anymore. Like, no, you absolutely can. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It's going to be, you got to get creative. You got to plan a little better, but man, you can absolutely do that. You just need to, get in the best possible human shape you can with the most independence, so you don't have to rely on others, and get back at it. I mean, you can figure it out. Motocross racing, I think I got a T6 guy back on a motocross bike, and doing jumps and stuff like that. And so it wasn't pretty, and he didn't go very fast like he used to, but man, the smile on his face was worth all the effort. So just a reason to get up every morning, man. Even that takes a hell of a lot more effort. But if you have a goal you're working towards, and like you said, day by day, one day at a time, and all of a sudden then you're 26 years in, and you don't know how the hell you made it that long, but here we are.
yeah, yeah, and you're sitting back on an empire of of situations and times, like memories and all, like your treasure trove is just life. Like I try to tell people, like, life doesn't care that you're in a wheelchair. it's not going to have mercy on you. It's not going like it's still going to go. It's still going to go forth. And you only get one chance. Take that bull by the horns, so to speak, and just make it the best life you possibly can. And what really turned my mindset around was I became a track and field coach for my local Special Olympics team here in Huntington Beach. And just to see the ecstatic mindsets that these athletes have. They don't care if they get gold, silver, bronze. You give them a ribbon and they're jumping up and down, just super happy, just super blessed. And I'm like, like you see people who have it way worse than you do, and you see how much they're making of it. And it's so contagious, and it's just something I want to be around so often. And it's just showing up to practice, and they're like, Coach Derek, and I'm like, it feels good. It feels so good. And but it took me getting out of the woe is me mindset, and that mindset's not going to get you anywhere in life. It's gonna bury you. It's not helpful at all.
A lot of people say, "Don't you ever have a bad day?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah!" I mean, everybody has a bad day, a bad month, whatever. But I just can't let it. I think part of it, as I just reflected for this book for the better part of a year, I'm glad I sat there and had to focus and reflect on what it took to get through the last 25 years before that. And a lot of it was just, I think I threw myself so hard back into business, back into building the racing team. And then all of a sudden I got, 100 families, on my payroll and supporting them. And I just filled my days from the time I woke up to the time I crashed at 11 o'clock with so much stuff. I didn't leave myself a lot of extra time to be depressed or woe me as me or whatever. It's like, man, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to go. And I was fortunate, to be able to do that. And I realized it because, a lot of times people just don't have transportation or don't have a way to get out of the house. And all of a sudden that, that's not good, for keeping them motivated. But yeah, pushing and that's basically what I'm going to say. A lot of the book is just about that, right? It's, you got to set goals and you got to make them achievable. You don't set them too high where you can't achieve them and you go backwards. And then also recognizing that probably the person in the chair doesn't have the worst situation, right? It's all the people around them that now have to make sacrifices and change their life to to help out that person. It's got to be a win-win. You got these caregivers got to have time to themselves and time to reboot and re-energize. So just try to preach that a lot as well. Like, be thankful for the help.
No, absolutely. It takes an army. Not necessarily an entire army, but it goes to show you too when someone goes through like just a life altering injury or something, just to see the people who really step up in your life are the people. Like my friend bubble, I got hurt at 21. My friend bubble shrank drastically because I wasn't partying anymore. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't smoking XYZ, and whatever, because there was a lifestyle at the time. But those people that I have now they mean the world to me, and they're the people who make it worth waking up in the morning, making it work up in the day. You're like, all right, let's go. Like,
not the people that were there the first week. It's the people that showed up, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years later, and kept showing up. Those are your true family and friends.
Yeah, when I came home, I there was a big old banner on my garage. My house had 20, 30 people in it. Everyone, hey, da 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 da. A week later, no one's answering the phone anymore, and it's like, why'd you even show up? But anyway, that's on another topic. One reason I started this podcast was because I get a lot of people asking questions like, oh, how do I get my son, or how do I get my daughter, or how do I get myself out in the outdoors? And I'm put the reason I started the podcast was because just getting bombarded with those questions and putting, and that's why I forgive me, I'm having a brain malfunction. I'm interviewing all the foundations and 501c3s and just groups of good old people who want to take people in the woods for a weekend, and by doing that, it just being able to get people out, and it's so empowering too to see people. You help them one time, and then because a lot of people, they just need to know how to do it. They're not used to this. Obviously, it's just a brand new thing. We didn't grow up learning how to live this life. I mean, unfortunately, you had a little bit of experience in this realm, um, but like a lot of people just don't have practice. They don't know what to do, and by getting out there and helping and showing people, because what I'm liking it about this podcast that's really like opening up my mind to what's possible out there is interviewing different injuries, types of injuries, from blind people to cerebral palsy to Duchenne's to muscular dystrophy to XYZ, you name it, and putting their stories out on the podcast. And then I'm getting other people that are like, oh, I have Duchenne's, I had no idea that was possible, I was looking to where to do that. That's just a blessing in my life. But I want to stop talking about myself. I want to I want to talk about Sam Schmidt. So after your injury, you come home. How long until you founded Sam Schmidt Motorsports?
6 months. Part of it was too my situation. I mean, I did have that intensive rehabilitation for 6 months, which I think, helped me gain my weight back, helped me be as physically prepared as I could. But number two, the 7 years prior to my accident, we've been married, and I was, being a professional race car driver, was on the road between 150, 200 days a year. And my wife had an independent mind, had her own thing. She, managed different things. And of course, more recently had the kids. And so when I'm home, I'm surrounded the first 3 months by nurses and PTs and OTs and, trying to sort out, your staffing and caregivers and getting somebody to show up reliably and all those usual kind of things. But after I'm home 3 or 4 months and there's 6 to 10 people coming through the house all day long, doing all these things and trying to keep this up, she's like, this was not our life before. I am not used to seeing you this much. You need to find something to do or I'm going to kill you. And, so to me, now that it's taking 2.5 hours every day to get out of bed and do the routine and do a little bit of physical therapy, you have to really buckle down and say, okay, what in my entire past have I done that it makes this all worthwhile every day? Or, what is the future goal that I'd like to do that I didn't have time to do before? And so for me, it just kept drawing me back to racing. Like racing was my driving force, ultimately growing up and then more recently. And so, naively, let's just start a team, and didn't know what the hell I was doing or anything like that. But we had quickly realized it's like any other business. You got to find the right people. Although now I need, like I did a lot of things myself before my accident. Overnight, I couldn't do anything for myself. So it really reinforced the fact that find the right people, put them in the right positions, give them the resources and let them go. That is the key to any successful business, but it is even more so in racing where, if somebody leaves a nut loose, somebody can get hurt, so it's a little more specialized and hyper exposed if you make a mistake. But yeah, I loved the teamwork side of it, and getting that team together and making sure people's talents are maximized. And that just drove me, for the better part of 20 years. And then in parallel, we started the foundation simply, again, because I had a lot of support. Most everybody I met in a chair didn't. So, let's try and drive that support through to them in the areas that need it, that are definitely underserved, And that's evolved. It was research. It was this, it was that, the stem cells. And then, of course, for the last 10 years, the focus has been this, developing this hardcore rehabilitation because Neuralink, Breathe Foundation, Bonaconte's Miami, all those guys are doing clinical trials. And every one of those clinical trials are going to have to result in some form of intensive rehabilitation. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Because if something starts clicking, you've got to relearn everything. So we didn't think we could compete with 200 million for Neuralink, but we thought we could be the smartest people as it applies to the rehabilitation side of things for these clinical trials. So, and the silver lining is the millions of people that need it in their day-to-day life already. The people that have been injured are waiting for something, but in the meantime, they just got to stay in shape mentally and physically. That's the void we try to fill.
Absolutely. So I did a little diving in on Driven. Were you guys opening up gyms? Like,
for lack of a better description, I mean, there's about 45 mom and pop kind of activity-based training centers around the country. It all kind of started in the late 90s with Project Walk in Carlsbad, and then they tried to do a bunch of them, and then there's the next steps out of Redondo Beach, Yanni Curry doing good stuff, and we're just trying to fill that gap in geographic areas where they don't currently have them. So we started in Vegas. There was nothing here where I live, so time to put our money where our mouth is and try and solve the problem here. And then that went well. We serve about 135 people a week downtown Vegas. Again, it's an open gym. It's one-on-one training. It's providing connections and access to a lot of other stuff like, three-wheel mountain bike, trike, hand cycles, and doing that once a month, and seated yoga, and mental health services, marriage and family counseling, anything we can kind of connect people to that we don't do. We make those connections. And then so a little over a year ago, we opened our second facility in Indianapolis, because that's my second home with the race team and everything else, and got fortunate with the location there. And, we want to keep doing more, but not sort of, pardon my French, half-ass. We want to do quality over quantity, so we will keep adding facilities in underserved areas as we can financially afford to do it, and try to find that access, because insurance doesn't reimburse for it, as we all know, but people need it so badly. So we just try to, get funding from wherever we can get it, whether it's grants or private funding or fundraisers or whatever, and then we just give that straight to the people to go to work.
I love it. Yeah, it's it helps so much just knowing. But let's reverse what I just said. So what you mentioned earlier is making sure you stay in shape mentally and physically. So by doing that, I harp on it so much, because me, like I'm now addicted to the gym, but physical fitness will always relate to mental health. If you're not working out, let's say if you are working out, it's gonna come with a stronger mindset, because it's gonna give you that ability to escape your day-to-day, the woe is me mindset, whatever. But being that you guys are doing that in Vegas and Indianapolis is amazing. Are you open to, possibly doing like fishing excursions and stuff like that in the future?
Absolutely. I mean, one of our cornerstones is not, like, if we're in a market, we're not going to duplicate something that's already being done there and done well. So a lot of times, especially like in Indianapolis, there's nonprofits, there's state-funded organizations, even here, whether it's the hiking or the hand cycling or any of those things. I know guys around the country, Wisconsin, et cetera, that are doing ability challenged excursions for weekends and whatnot, Florida. So the biggest thing we try and do is connect people to already existing programming, scuba diving. I've been fortunate to do a lot of this stuff in 26 years. Even when skydiving with my kids. So we don't need to have that program under our roof. We just refer everybody to it, make sure they know about the opportunity and how we did it safely, and just go do it. A lot of great philanthropic people in this country doing really, really good things, but a lot of times people just don't know how to do it or how to connect. So we're also trying to be a bit of a connective tissue. We're redesigning the website. I consider myself an old fart that doesn't do social media, very well or at all. So we're trying to navigate, like, how can we still do it and just point people in the right direction? Which is, why reinvent the wheel? Resources are tight, so let's send people where there's already programming. And to your point, like, I now have a list of people that do high performance hand controls for anybody that wants to drive fast as a paraplegic or even a low level quadriplegic. I'm on the board of Brawn Ability, which creates accessible vehicles back in Indiana, middle of a farm field. Great people, great organization, 60 years old, kind of invented mobility per se, but they're expensive. Everything's expensive now. And so we got to figure out how to make it a little more affordable. And Ralph Braun had a vision when he was diagnosed with terminal cancer that he did not want Braun Ability ever to not have a person in a chair on the board of directors and have influence. Well, that just makes sense. I mean, you can't design a wheelchair accessible vehicle without a lot of influence from people in wheelchairs. So I feel honored to have been brought in, 13 years ago, and I just love that company and what they do. And I'm beating my chest every week, man. We got to get more affordable. We got to do this. We got to do that. So it's been a blessing because, I wouldn't have, if I wasn't in a chair, I wouldn't have access to all of these things, that I've got to do. And the people I've got to meet are super incredible. And I recognize that I did have benefits most people don't have. So when I see somebody that, doesn't have a pot to piss in, rise up and, get shape and get married or get a job or, whatever, that just motivates the heck out of me.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. It really is. And there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of people out there who are breaking the norms or the norms, but the window that is cast on people with, oh, you're in a wheelchair, oh, you're automatically, XYZ. And it's like no, it's like, if you have no idea, you hang out with me for a day, hang out with me for a week, you know what I mean? I'll show you what a great life is. And it really goes to show. I mean, it proves the point. Ignorance is bliss, but they're only ignorant because they don't know. And if you're out there and you're spreading the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that you bring to the table, if you're being an asset to whatever area of opportunity you can be in, then that's the way to go, and that's the way to grow people's. That's how we move forward. But that's yeah, that's what something you said earlier. Like, people people want to do stuff, they just don't know how. And for me, that's another thing. Forgive me, I keep bringing it back to myself, and I feel horrible doing this. But I want to. What got me to start this whole podcast thing was just the people, but it's I'm building a database. I'm just going state by state and listing all the 501c3s, specifically mainly for outdoor activities, hunting, fishing, mountain biking, XY. XYZ, and just stuff like that. So hopefully, once I get the website built up and stuff like that, you guys could I mean, if the opportunity's there, we could collaborate and help out. But on your book, No Finish Line, it's a story from pre-injury, injury, post-injury, and how to get people back on the schneid, correct?
Back into life, it sucks. You've been having this tragedy, but there's got to be a reason. You got to figure out what your next phase in life is. And if if you need help doing that, just like you're saying, we'll connect you to resources. We'll connect you to everything we can figure out. But you got to be willing to put the work in, man. We can't get you out of bed. We can't hold your hand. We can't do this. It's your physical and mental strength that has to make it happen. And I feel to this day, that's the reason I was never given back the use of my arms, is because that I can say, man, if I can go this fast or I can get back into racing, I can race a car just using my head. There's really nothing you can't do. It just takes a hell of a lot of time and effort and work. It's one of the sides I do like about social media, though, is just seeing how the platforms is created for a lot of people, and they're motivating other people that have had an injury or something. And so, more power to it. I probably missed my window of what I could do on social media as old as I am, but more power to the next generation, because it's also creating an income stream for a lot of people that wouldn't have an opportunity to do that conventionally. So keep doing what you're doing, because I don't have any experience hunting, and that's we all know, I mean, even Ralph Braun, who I spent some time with in his later years, he was on 70 acres of Winnemac. So on his back deck, he actually had a chin controlled through a computer AK-15. Mm-hmm. And he took a lot of pleasure in trying to blow apart wild turkeys on his property. And he didn't hit a lot of them, but when they hit, there wasn't much left. And, and he designed that whole system himself with a buddy. And here you go. I mean, like this, this is a great way to spend 3 hours on a Saturday afternoon trying to blow apart wild turkeys. But and I've got other friends that have, been up mountains and done all kinds of crazy things, in wheelchairs, because it was like what they did before, and they feel a huge sense of accomplishment if they can recreate an activity they did before their injury and do it just as good or better, afterwards. So kudos. I'm a big supporter of anything like that.
Absolutely, yeah. And I see a lot of people, or I don't know, not a lot of people, but I come across people who are like, oh, like, I don't know how to do that, or there's no way to do that now that I'm in a wheelchair. We'll go out there and make a way. Why don't you be the person to go out and be the blessing and stuff like that? But
a big sign on my wall over here that I get every day that says, if you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you're right. So I need to remember, I hit the wall at least 10 times over 200 miles an hour when I was racing. So I need all these things to remember, like, what it's all about around me, so pictures and remind me, like, hey, that's true. Okay, let's go do it, so, but no, keep up what you're doing. And I hope people like the book. I mean, it was, again, I didn't really do it. Number one, all the proceeds go to the foundation, which is great. But I did it to, leave a legacy for my grandkids, so they know the whole story. Future people that use Driven know how it evolved. But yeah, it is a bit of a playbook. I mean, I exposed myself a lot in the book to things I did wrong and things I, made mistakes on, so that hopefully that'll help people not make the same mistakes. Those kind of things. So it's a bit business, it's a bit perseverance, and also it's about, racing is my passion, but the Driven Neuro Recovery Center is my purpose. I mean, that's why I pivoted, and I'm just focused on this as long as I'm on life, because the need is so incredible. There's so many millions of people that, don't have access. and there's limitations. So we're going to keep working to try and, bring down the limitations and increase the access. And that's more motivating to me now, than winning races. So I thought I'd never say that, but it's pretty cool.
You never know until you know.
You never know what you're capable of until you're put in that situation. But yeah, and I've been fortunate or unfortunate to visit a lot of big VAs around the country with the Corvette, with different things we've done. And man, if there's one thing I know for sure, even though I can't move anything below my neck, there's a hell of a lot of people out there that are way worse than me, whether it's brain injury, whether it's on a ventilator, whatever. My life could be a lot worse than it is right now. So, I keep that in the back of my mind too. It's like a lot of people getting after it that are, way, way worse off than I am. So.
Yeah, I always tell myself that too. Whenever I'm having a bad day, I'm like, dude, it could always be worse. Stop, beating around the bush. But one thing I want to touch on before we split ways here is this McLaren that you got or that you had controlling with your head absolutely blew my mind. Can you touch on that, like how that came to be and how that works?
I'm a beneficiary of an opportunity, and that's the biggest thing I'll say about it is when somebody opens the door, you also got to have the guts and the willingness to walk through it and do the work it takes. And I was approached by a company I'd never heard of out of Denver about 11 years ago, like just simply saying, "Do you want to drive again?" I used to drive 240 miles an hour, so if I'm going to drive again, it's not going to be around the city at 40 miles an hour. We got to get with it. So they liked that idea. They had the technology. We worked together to put it in our first Corvette in 2014. And we drove it at Indy 107 miles an hour, in about 7 months. So it kind of re-inspired me as to what's possible. And of course, we've been evolving the technology ever since. And you've seen how much Siri and Google and all these other apps can do for people in the last 10 years. The car's the same thing. It was all we could do to go 100 then. We went to a Z06 then we went to C8, and these are all owned by Aero. It's all their initiative. It's all their engineering. It's all their equipment. But the big picture purpose was not to sell driving systems for quadriplegics. It was to allow people with disabilities to drive tractors, to drive trains, to drive their harvester or whatever. Just allow people with disability to get back into life, get back into work, show their capabilities as a company, and they've been rewarded really good for it. And the most recent thing is a McLaren 720S, and we've been around the world with it. We've driven that 213 miles an hour. It's an unbelievable piece of equipment, and again, modern technologies is a wonderful thing.
So all right, when you blow in the straw, that gets the gas, and when you suck, and that's the brake. And there's cameras in the dashboard or just all around the.
Yeah. The latest evolution is like a sip and puff, and it's fully programmable. I can change it to where when I suck, it goes, and I blow, it stops. But I think it's more intuitive to blow and go, and to suck and stop, and it's all as if you had your feet. Really, you blow really hard, it's gonna burn out and do donuts. If you just whisper, it's gonna slow start. Same with the brakes, incredible stopping power. But then it's evolved also from these infrared cameras to actually AI cameras that track my eyes, track my head. I used to have the inside all fully blacked out. Now with the AI cameras, we don't. We take the roof off. We, have no tinting. We just normal everyday light. It's extremely intuitive. Turn your head, it turns. But the downside is you can't go down a street and be rubbernecking or looking at girls or something, because when you turn, it will turn like instantaneously. So that's the biggest thing you have to learn. Otherwise, It's really easy and intuitive. But again, now, with technology where it's at, a farmer could sit in his living room and drive the harvester. You don't have to be in it, which is some crazy stuff. But of course, I want to be in the car. I want to be driving fast. So I choose to be in the car, but you don't even need to be in the car anymore, really. It's phenomenal stuff. I mean, I'm blown away.
Yeah, I'm not a really big fan of the word, but when I saw that social media post, I found it really inspiring. The word inspire, it's like, oh, people are like, oh, you inspire me so much. It's like, dude, I'm buying a carton of eggs. Like, I gotta live. But I just thought I was just like just mind blown at the technology that's out there nowadays, and if people just keep up the hope, keep yourself in mental and physical shape, and who knows where
Exactly. It's symbolic uh, of not just driving fast, but it's symbolic of really the fact that you can do anything you put your mind to it. May take a little longer, may take a little more planning, but you can't do it. And that's the other thing I really like about Driven is this kind of created this community of people with similar disabilities, similar challenges. People will always try and tell you, how to live your life or how you can do this or how you can do that. But man, until you're like actually the person sitting in the chair, you don't get it. And we may have somebody that's been injured 6 months at Driven working out next to somebody that's been injured for 30 years. And that's when things happen. That's when there's support. That's when there's encouragement. That's when there's transfer of knowledge. That's when it really happens. Like, can't call it every urologist and get a quick fix on your UTI. It's like call the person that's been dealing with it for 30 years. So, it's a really cool environment. I love it.
it's a beautiful world. Once you adopt the mindset of a beautiful mind, you see the beautiful world. One last thing I want to touch on before we go about our ways is how how beautiful was it to have your father-daughter dance in an exoskeleton?
It was, yeah. Obviously, it's an entire chapter in the book, but it was 9 months of really intensive training. 3-4 days a week, flying back and forth to Nashville to develop a custom exoskeleton that would support a high-level quadriplegic. But it was worth every day, every hour, every minute of the work because I think that's every father's dream. And I couldn't walk her down the aisle because it was a grove of trees, a very uneven surface, and in hindsight, that was a blessing because that should be her moment and her time to shine, walking down the aisle. But to walk into that room and have a lot of our friends just get freaked out, and there's only a handful of people who knew I was going to do it, and we kept it pretty quiet. But tears and screams and yells and f-bombs and dancing with her, then dancing with my wife, then dancing with 150 people for the better part of 30 minutes. I mean, it was a once in a lifetime scenario, and standing looking, because I want to be like 6 foot in the exo, and it's taller than 90% of the people in the room. So just to be able to stand in the middle, look around, and just get that different perspective that I really hadn't had in 20 years. It's just so many cool things. I mean, it's beyond description. It was worth all the effort.
No, I have a rewalk exoskeleton, and people are asking me, "Oh, how is it? How is it to walk?" I'm like, honestly, like walking, that part's cool, but the thing that I like the most is just looking at people in the eye, being at eye level at people, because I'm always looking up, and you never realize how it plays with your mind. But then when you're looking at people in the eye again, it's just it just, oh man, that's what I love about it.
It's like one of the things I hate is taking pictures of people and having them kneel down to be next to me or bend down to be next to me. And when they came out with the seat elevators and power wheelchairs, I'm like, great, man. Now I can like escalate up, at least be, eye to eye or side to side. And to your point, yeah, I put that exoskeleton on. I walked into the garages at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and I had 65 employees that had never seen me standing up before. And man, it was just unbelievable. Everybody's crying, and it was an unbelievable sensation. Again, to be able, like you said, just look people in the eye and have a conversation, mano a mano. It's not easy. Again, it's not going to be like, here it is, bolt it on and go. I mean, it takes training. It takes activity. You got to be careful so you don't create a situation where you're face down in the concrete. But man, it's worth every penny, and it's worth every hour to make it happen. So, and I hope there's a day when they're 5 minutes to put on, and a couple grand. Then I think we reach a point of true accessibility, and not having to make all these modifications to your house and everything else. So yeah, it's coming. There's advancements. Things are getting cheaper. Just keep pushing.
Pushing everybody. You heard it. You heard it from the man himself. But so we're coming up on an hour here, and I like to keep it around an hour. But if you guys have been listening to my podcast, you guys know I'm a man of God. I'm a man of faith. And I end every podcast that I have with a word of prayer. If you have eyes to see and ears to hear, feel free to join. If you don't want to, that's completely fine. I'm going to lift up a prayer real quick, if you guys don't mind. So, Father God, thank you so much for the blessings you've given us, Lord. Thank you for the opportunity to have Sam come on this podcast, Lord God, and just preach the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that he has, Lord. And thank you for giving him eyes to see and ears to hear, Lord, for using his incident, Lord God, to be a blessing to others, so many others, Lord God. And I just pray that you would continue to guide him, strengthen him, give him the peace that he needs, Lord God. Father, I pray that this podcast would reach those who need to see it, who need to hear it, who need to have the wisdom entertained into their lives, Lord God. So we leave all these things in your son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Sam, thank you, sir, for coming on. I really, really appreciate it, and I'd keep up the good work.
For having me, and keep up the good hunting.
I'll try, man. I don't know about that part, but I'll try.
Talk to you later. Thanks, Derek.